Hello everyone, and today we are looking at Assault. We want to take a look at what the class strengths and weaknesses are and what the best builds are currently. So to hop in directly, class strength, we have access to Power Fist, we have a very good amount of mobility, some iframes on demand, through that high damage output as well. In terms of weaknesses, survivability is really build dependent and it can feel rough, and we have limited options for ranged threats that are really ammo dependent, and we have no ammo regen. Those are like the main cons. Quick word of warning, there are some bugs on Assault at the moment. On 10.3, Overcharge is not buffing our damage like it should, and for some reason all of our range damage, regardless of the weapon, is lower than it should be. Now, with that being said, let's hop into the builds. So this is the first one I would take a look at. It's the Wings of Flame build. Pretty simple. We will be running Armor Reinforcement. Overcharge is a very good option if the game isn't buggy there. It packs a lot of damage. Basically, running Overcharge allows you to one-shot Majoris with Power Fist. So it would be a great option for Power Fist, and it also allows you to one-shot on a Throttle Skip combo on Chainsword if you have 2 block stacks. Again, it's bugged currently, so we run Armor Reinforcement. Armor Reinforcement has incredible synergy with the build anyway, so those two, even if Overcharge weren't buggy, would be neck and neck. Now, on a second perk, we go with Defense Mechanism. The reason being, we run a build that will give us a lot of gun strikes, and getting that extra CHP delay allows us to fish for those perfect dodges, gun strikes to recover completely. It also just gives us more leeway to just pull out Plasma Pistol and get our charge shot in. Overall, incredible perk when it comes to survivability. We will be running Knowledge of the Enemy. Knowledge of the Enemy is just extra damage. Now, there's the argument with Active Attrition, because Active Attrition is actually a pretty solid debuff. 2 issues with Active Attrition. 1, it only applies for 3 seconds, so that's like a bit on the lower end. And 2, it doesn't apply prior to our melee attack. And a lot of our gameplay is one-shotting people when we can, so Active Attrition doesn't synergize that well compared to Knowledge of the Enemy. Now, proven efficiency. Why do we go with this? As you'll see with the rest of the build, again, we're going a very gunstrike oriented build, so gunstrike dealing more damage just makes perfect sense. It's for everyone in the squad, so it's okay as a team perk. It's really more for ourselves that we run it. Next up, Precision Strike, just because this allows us to reach one-shot thresholds on Majoris, so we can just ground pound any Majoris in the game and they will instantly go to incapacitation regardless of the weapon we're using, so long as it's so long as it's a block weapon or a balance weapon. And then we have the classic trio of Wings of Flame, Aerial Grace, and Commitment. So this is going to explain, a fair bit of how the build plays, but basically we just play on the jump hack dash technique where we get perfect dodges, dealing AoE damage around us and gun striking at least one target. Every time we gun strike, we're going to get that armor bar back. We're going to get all of the HP we might have lost back because we've lost next to none thanks to the defense mechanism. And on top of that, we will have dealt a massive chunk of damage. To give you an idea, Wings of Flame plus a gun strike is going to deal around about 200 points of damage on this build to a singular target. Meaning, if you do this on a melee Majoris and then throttle skip them, they die. Simple as that. Throttle skip, shoulder bash will put them into incap, and you get this neat 30% damage buff on Aerial Grace procs. So this is pretty straightforward. When it comes to the prestige perks, Unyielding Oath, so I used to consider this kind of a skill issue perk, but it is a really nice to have perk, I'm not gonna lie. It allows you to just say no to some situations with iframes on demand, and sure, we have a lot more cooldown than Sniper does with it, but it is very nice for us. On top of that, Adrenaline Boost, this is a must-have. This basically allows us to play melee combat without getting tossed around on the first mistake we make, so long as you've done a perfect parry, block or dodge. Scramble targeting, again, no questions asked. Our main vulnerability is range damage, so scramble targeting. And practiced aim, extra range damage. Again, not as good at the moment given we are already bugged on range damage, so the 15% is doing less work than it should, but still, it is a best in slot. Quick touch on this column, because this one is one of the more questionable, more important ones. Auxiliary Arsenal and Consecutive Execution are two great perks, but this gives us an extra layer of survivability that pairs so well with Armor Reinforcement and a perfect dodge that it makes no sense to run anything else on this specific variant. In terms of pros for the build, high AoE damage in melee, very good at dueling melee terminus, you have great survivability for an assault, it's incredibly fun to play. Honestly, you're just dashing all the time and it feels very, very nice. And it makes most, if not all, weapon options look actually good. In terms of cons, there is downtime in melee where you make mistakes. So if you're not running a block weapon and you mess up your Wings of Flame dash, then you're basically limited because you're not getting a refund on your commitment proc, right? So that is clearly something you have to learn to play around, especially since Wings of Flame can deal damage to targets prior to the perfect dodge registering, so you need to know when to Wings of Flame and when not to. And in terms of other con, the last one is it's a bit slow in a group setting. If you are running with a heavy range damage comp, they will just nuke packs as you're just trying to dance around in melee with your Wings of Flame, so it's not as good in a heavy ranged comp. Taking a quick look at the weapons for melee, my favorite is going to be the Blockchain Sword. By and large, it feels incredibly satisfying. Basically do Wings of Flame proc into Gunstrike, into Throttle Skip, kill someone. It's very, very nice to play, honestly. My favorite by and large. You can run Power Fist as well, it is just very, very good. Even with Overcharge not working properly, the thing is you're gonna get your Aerial Grace proc regularly, which compensates for a lot of your issues. So Power Fist, also a good option. Honestly, anything works. Block weapons are of course gonna be stronger, but you get some really good value out of Gunstrikes anyway, thanks to Armor Reinforcement and Proven Efficiency, plus Defense Mechanism. Those three combined is what makes the build actually work well off Gunstrikes. So anything like the Balanced Power Axe actually does surprisingly good work. You can also run the Xeno phase and have very good results with it. Those two on a balanced weapon are pretty damn good. And they would be my main recommendation if you're not comfortable with block weapons. I'll touch on the secondary. Secondary, for true solo, I would recommend the Heavy Bolt Pistol, just to make sure you've got the ammo required to handle ranged encounters, and so ammo variant, of course. And if you're in a team setting, then Plasma Pistol with Fire Rate is always going to be better for the AoE Gunstrike in melee, and again, we do a lot of those. And also for the contested HP regen, where you can just charge a shot and get everything back. So here's what it looks like in terms of gameplay. Now, on to the next build, which I will call the I really want to make Thunderhammer work build. and this is basically what I've come up with at this point. So some credit here to my friend Admin, who kind of nudged me in that direction initially. The reason for this build is really just to get as much ground pound as possible, as consistently as possible. So Thunderhammer just has a garbage moveset with honestly disappointing damage. However, it has incredibly good looking animations, incredibly satisfying sound effects, and so it's nice to play. Making something that makes it work is kind of important, and this is the best I've found at this point. Basically, we run the same components, except we scrap Wings of Flame, and we instead run cooldown reduction. Same with their gunstrike damage. Armor reinforcement is still going to give us survivability off of our gunstrikes and perfect dodges, which we can do manually, and that's what we will be doing manually most of the time. Defense mechanism, again, for the contested HP survivability, it's just really satisfying, really good. Knowledge of the enemy, there's not much better options anyway in this. You could take Perseverance, but you would lose on 15% melee damage, which is, in my humble opinion, a problem. And again, Precision Strike, you want your one-shot breakpoints. We can run Aerial Grace Commitment anyway if we want the extra 30% damage on the gunstrikes and the gunstrike generation refund. It's a combo I like well. Realistically, you might just be better off with Pride and Duty, Ample Ammunition, or Diligence. Both are, like, all those three are also a very viable option. I true soloed on Chaos with this. It didn't feel too bad, and it was on Chaos where there's like a lot less melee attacks. In terms of the hammer itself, you want either a block hammer or honestly a balance hammer. Balance hammer makes it work anyway. You might just be better off with a balance hammer for ease of use, especially when dealing with Minoris. Both are like a valid option. Overall, hammer just isn't a great weapon, but us being Assault, you know, we can make it work mostly via ground pound damage.
Ashes to ashes, rust to rust. Jump back refuel. Beyond. Their mutations reinforce. Faith is eternal. Jump pack refuel. We are the next one. The Imperium wants me. I'm airborne ready. Out of munitions. We as a nation.
And very quickly, the last build I'm going to go over is going to be the speedrun one. Basically, if you're aiming to go as as fast as possible, or at least being as useful as possible within a short amount of time, this would be the build you run. And again, it's going to be a very ground pound oriented build because you've got just the ability to nuke packs very regularly with this. Overcharge, if it weren't bugged, again, best in slot here, just because we want to pack as much damage as possible, and as you can tell, we will be doing this on Power Fist as well. One of the usages for Assault in speedrunning is going to be nuking bosses and nuking packs. This build gives us both, right? We have the overcharge for the nuking bosses with the Power Fist, we have the cooldown reduction on nuking packs, and we have Diligence for some bit of extra damage. Ample Ammunition actually allows us to land and finish off anything that would be just cleaved a bit or whatnot. This is actually pretty good. A bit disappointing that our damage is bugged because we again don't get as much value as we should, but Ample Ammunition is a pretty good perk. And we are running Equipment Regen because in Speedrun, Equipment Regen allows you to bypass some objective phases very effectively, so having some Equipment Regen can be very valuable. This is just more overall damage. Now in terms of pros, you know, we have a very high uptime on Jump Pack, a very high damage output on Block Power Fist, and some surprisingly good range damage that will only get better when we're not bugged anymore. In terms of cons, the main con is we lack survivability. We have very little in terms of margin of error. That would be the main con of the build. Finishing notes regarding Assault. We are in a pretty damn good spot. We've come a long way since release and a long way since I started playing the game. Assault is not weak, and it hasn't been in ages. It hasn't been since April. Is it hard to play? Yes, it is the hardest class in the game to play in terms of skill floor, and it has probably the highest skill ceiling. It is, however, one of the most rewarding. It struggles still a bit into chaos, despite the addition of some damage reduction perks that do a tremendous amount of good. It can still easily go to wave 25 hard siege. Further than that, most classes fall off anyway, so it's not really an exception. Assault is, for me, the class that has the most fun gameplay loot in Wings of Flame. It's just a can of adrenaline straight into your veins, so give it a shot.